Hello, welcome to Beyond the Dieline Founders Edition. I'm Tom Seymour, your host. Today I'm bursting with excitement to interview my good friend, customer, partner, and co-founder, Jessica Kwon. Jessica is the founder of Jack and Friends Jerky and co-founder of Moka Energy. She is a powerhouse founder, food scientist, and networker. I know her Cornell professors are very proud of her. You can find her products at jackandfriendsjerky.com and mokaenergy.com. You are in for a great show. Enjoy.
Social media and like what we put out to the public is so different from what we're all experiencing. So if this can provide any solace to anyone, just know we're all going through it and you're not alone.
Jessica, welcome. How are you?
Hey Tom, long time no see, but not really.
Yeah, for sure. I'm so excited to speak with you today and talk a little bit more about your founder journey and highlight some of the challenges and some of the success, and also maybe get some tips and tricks um, for other founders that are coming after you to maybe make the journey a little bit easier.
Yep, sounds good.
Yeah. So I wanted to start out by having you tell the audience a little bit about your background and what you're working on.
Yeah, so as Tom so kindly introduced, I'm the founder of Jack and Friends and the co-founder of Moka Energy. Both are CPG products. Before I dove into entrepreneurship, my technical background is as a food scientist, where I got my bachelor's in food science from Cornell University. And in a previous life, even before that, I did a brief stint in pastry, so more on the culinary side.
Awesome. That's such a cool background to have worked in like both sides. I have that in common with you that I spent 16 years in hospitality and then pivoted into packaging, co-packing, and now some work in brand ownership. So it's just interesting how many people that we meet have spent time across different industries. What are some of the transferable skills if you had to think about it? Like, I know a lot of skills that I picked up in the food service industry were transferable to what I do today. What are some of those transferable skills that you can think of?
Yeah, I think so. Starting back from my pastry days, that really started from a passion. I've been baking since I was like 7 or 8 years old. And it just seemed like a natural progression to learn more about the subject matter. Although baking is more of a hobby for me now. I think one, the hard work and the work ethic are always transferable. Realistically, you're on your feet for long hours at a day, oftentimes super late at night. So, that kind of carries over, when you're just passionate and working about everything. And then I think because I'm still working in food and, I do have that technical background as a food scientist and now as a brand owner, um, the culinary side of it is still applicable. Food, whether it's packaged or not, at the end of the day needs to taste good. So coming from that culinary side and understanding how to make products and make products that taste good and flavor development is always helpful. And then transitioning more for food science, I tell everyone I'm so glad that I'm coming with that background where, especially as a small, scrappy, emerging brand that probably doesn't have the resources to hire a robust technical team, understanding how to develop products with the technical rigor of a billion-dollar company, but at the scale of a startup is always helpful. Whether that's on the bench top, sensory analysis, food safety and quality, understanding how co-manufacturers work. It's a lot of breadth that I'm glad I came with before starting Jack and Friends and now Mocha.
Yeah, it's amazing that oftentimes I think people disregard um, that that the culinary industry, cooking, is chemistry. And yeah, that really parlays nicely if you want to go and transition, or a lot of times there's opportunity. Like I started working in hospitality when I was pretty young, and so it got me involved in that food space. And had I wanted to take and transition from food service into food science, it's really not as much of a leap as you think. And I agree with you on the grit and the hard work that's required. It's both are equally as challenging. So there's definitely a lot of transferable skill there. One of the things that I always tell people is um, what I developed because I was a front of house fine dining head waiter. And so one of the things that I got to develop that sometimes doesn't develop as much in back of house is the hospitality quotient. So, we all need our IQ, and you hear sometimes people talk about EQ, emotional quotient. But that hospitality quotient is a piece that it is really, really honed in the hospitality and service industry, and it really does set you apart quite a bit if you've developed that. So,
For
um,
sure. I think at the end of the day, we're all working with people, whether it's in the hospitality industry as a scientist or as a founder. And that's, how people connect. So on the EQ side, that's always important. So totally agree with you there.
yeah, it's amazing. You got to have that balance. So, take us back, like the founder origin story. So, you're at Cornell University. You're crushing it as a food science student, and one day you wake up and you have this amazing idea. What was the origin of Jack and Friends, and when did the idea become real? And what was the genesis that led you to stepping out into entrepreneurship?
Yeah, great question. I think the genesis was two separate paths that almost converged, where, as a food science student, one of the extracurriculars that I spent probably the majority of my time on was product development teams and competitions. So at Cornell, it was a way for students to self-organize themselves in teams of, anywhere from like 4 to 12 students, develop new and novel products, and then submit them for annual competitions. So, starting as a freshman, I was on the IFTSA and Mars product development team, which was the largest product development team at Cornell. And in my junior year, when I was a co captain for the second year in a row, for the competition, had developed this concept for a jackfruit jerky product. Now, that product came about through various market research, looking at trending ingredients, lifestyles, and diets that were on the rise in the US. And, after testing a multitude of different products, settled upon jackfruit jerky as something that, was interesting, but also was filling a need. So while that was going on, in my junior and senior years at Cornell as well, my father actually ended up developing pretty severe food allergies. He was in his like late 50s into his early 60s, and now is allergic to all fish, shellfish, and gluten. So, as a Chinese American and someone that was older, I saw firsthand how difficult it was for him to essentially upend his whole lifestyle. Like, he was eating a certain way his whole life, and then as he's getting older, has to be mindful of things like cholesterol and sugar and just overall, health and wellness. So throwing in all of these major allergies just was a huge speed bump that it took a lot to overcome and learn how to essentially change his eating habits. So with those two things kind of coming together, I, obviously wanted to make his life easier, find a solution for him coming from this background of being in the food industry and having already developed this product concept for a jackfruit jerky. It kind of just fell together where, the product itself is vegan and top 9 allergen free, but packed with protein and fiber. And it was a really great first product line to essentially launch a brand that had a larger mission of inclusivity, really geared for people like my father. So that's kind of how the product and the brand came about and became Jack and Friends. But it really was almost serendipitous in that way.
That's awesome that it had an opportunity to like support your dad's dietary needs. I think that like oftentimes as food product developers, we don't always think about the future snapshot of us, which is our parents, as a model that we can look at for what does that person need, or how is their dietary needs changed, or what is the trend in that demographic. I think we're always so busy trying to capture the younger generation and create something for younger people. So that's awesome that it has relevance. It's obviously very like trendy and popular with the younger crowd. Like you see more and more people eating vegan and looking to plant based. But then also it has that great fit and great story with your dad. So that's awesome. And then I'm going to give a shameless plug here. So the Institute of Food Technologists, Food Science Club at Cornell University actually just reached out today. So like your timing is amazing mentioning this, or their timing is amazing in emailing. And so I've been a supporter of the program there, and I've been trying to make this specific student contest bigger and better by getting more corporate sponsorship, having people donate ingredients or prizes or mentorship. The big one is prizes. So for all you corporate people out there that have budgets, we're only talking about a couple $100 from a few strategic partners that really make a huge difference for these students to be able to continue developing product, jump into an entrepreneurial journey, or sometimes they apply it to being able to go to a trade show and gain that experience. So if you watch this or listen to this and you want to hear more about how you can help me support that program, please feel free to reach out. But interesting because you and I don't think that, I mean, I don't know that you and I have ever established like our involvement in those programs. Like, I mean, I know we've talked about Cornell and all the overlap and that kind of stuff, but I can't remember if I'd ever told you that a couple of years ago I got passionate about supporting that IFT group.
Yeah, actually, I didn't know that. So always more to learn. But it's funny. I remember the reason we first met was because I did that panel for Cornell as a founder that came out of the program, and obviously you're super involved with Cornell in general, but specifically all of the program work they do with their extension lab at Geneva, but also the food science department. So love how you're also supporting the students at Food Science Club. I remember as a student, I was able to go to the Fancy Food Show in New York City every year because there was sponsors and other resources available towards the food science students to get a ticket to a trade show and understand what the industry looks like beyond the classroom.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Couple ideas that I always share with people is that one, it's the village that's around us that really drives us to the highest point of success. So it's that network, it's those people you put around you, and then the other one is like not only have the people around me help get me where I am, help get you where you are, but like those people held the door. And so the reason I'm so passionate, I mentor students at RET and Cornell, and I like to give back because I know that I'm not here because of Tom Seymour. You're not here because of Jessica. We're here because someone along the way, or many people along the way, held the door and helped us out. And so I'm always putting that pressure back on people because it's so easy just to get into your own silo and like forget about like what others have done for you or how you can help. And so I'm always trying to apply pressure for people to get involved. It's super enjoyable work. It's very rewarding, and you're investing in a future generation. And so, yeah, I love that you and I both have that in common. Well, so this being a packaging podcast, I have to get into a little bit. I mean, you do have some of the most amazing packaging. This design work is so hype. It's so cool. Like your colors, everything. It's just, I mean, some of the best packaging that I've seen. And you know, again, I go back to largely like material selection, really great design, really good branding, a lot of thought. So tell me a little bit more about that journey along the packaging route, some of the iterative work that you had to do. I know that the packaging hasn't always looked like this. It hasn't always been this. So take us down a little bit down that journey for those brand owners that are like, they think that like this is the end all be all. Like maybe give a little bit of information about how things change and the preparedness to having change and the acceptance that what you have today may not be your long term, and like some of the some of the decisions that help lead you to this really great pack that you have today.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because that packaging was a labor of love for sure. But we get so many compliments on it, and I'm in love with how it turned out. So shout out to Wagon Design Studio based in Colombia. They did an amazing job with our brand refresh. So yeah, the packaging iteration was plentiful for sure. I remember when we first started out, as a scrappy solo founder does, it was me bumbling around on Adobe Illustrator, looking up YouTube tutorials on how to, clip things, make things transparent, all this other stuff to just get um packaging artwork, ready. And I think you'll appreciate this. There was a particularly sad moment. I think it was probably 2 a.m. where I finished designing something in Photoshop and realized that you need all vector artwork for packaging. So I was pretty sad about essentially redoing a lot of that in Illustrator versus Photoshop. So for anyone out there maybe hasn't gone through that misstep, but could potentially just know that you need anything in vector for printing purposes. But yeah, the packaging looked totally different back then. It was a white background, had a window. Um, Different pictures on it. Just yeah, a very different concept. And when we did the brand refresh with Wagon, it was really based off of a need and understanding that our current packaging did the job, but it wasn't really working for us in the way that it needs to, especially on shelf in a retailer. So really undertook this brand refresh and went to the design studio and said, hey, we want something that's colorful and playful and leans into our branding where each friend is named after a different flavor. How do we personify that? How can we create characters and do all these other things? As a technical person, and the brand founder, I had a vision for what I wanted and, what I wanted it to achieve on shelf. Like people should understand what it is, when they're passing by, a shelf shopping in a store and all these other things, but I didn't know how to translate it into a visual identity. So that's where the branding studio really, took all that feedback and a lot of essentially my word vomit and just made it concise and brought it to life. So I probably have like 20 different iterations from them, where we're just making big tweaks, small tweaks, anything in between, and finally settled on the packaging that you have in your hands. But it was a long process for sure, and I think as a technical person, a lot of it was um, supported and led by consumer data, whether that was surveys or just talking to people and understanding, what was working and what wasn't. The only thing, because I think packaging is obviously unique to each brand and what the goals are, the only thing I highly suggest that I think we did right is from the get-go, we had custom printed packaging. And again, it was me with Adobe Illustrator. It doesn't need to be fancy, but I think even if you're doing something super small, MOQ wise, it makes a big difference compared to like a sticker on a craft pack or something like that. It just looks way more professional, and I think that was the right move from the start.
Yeah, I agree. There's so much there to unpack. I guess working in reverse, I'm always telling people that um, the label on the pack, it ends up looking unprofessional and less presentable. And oftentimes they're not calculating the cost of it properly because usually the founder is putting that on their pack themselves. And I always tell people, like, you're the most expensive label applicator, right? Like, you need to be focused on working on your business, not in your business. And if you actually were to take and quantify your time on putting those labels on, yes, it's not a direct cost, but it is a cost. And so I agree with you on custom printing. Obviously, I'm in that space. I think what I need to do is I want to put together a little crash course for founders because there's so many things that founders don't understand about packaging. And like in your case, you're inflexible, but just in general, like the idea of like protecting and preserving the product, because with your product, it has some really specific barrier needs. So you have to use a pretty specific type of material to preserve the food, while at the same time you use a very specific type of print material to give a certain finish and look and feel. And there's so much science and technical that goes along with it. And so many times it's like that part is not understood. It's kind of glossed over. And oftentimes the harder part is now with sustainability, you get a lot of people that want to apply recyclability or apply compostability without understanding the technical side of what the product needs. And so, yeah, I want to create a little something that like could help, especially emerging brands, understand better. So along the line, like you've certainly had to work through understanding and developing those barriers. Um, when I think about supply chains, one of the things, like, because this podcast is meant to be honest and raw and be a founder's journey, um, I can be open and honest here. Like, as customer and partner on this packaging, I haven't been 100% flawless, right? Like, so founders should be aware that, like, if your expectation is that things are always going to go kind of perfect or well, like, you're in the wrong line of work. Like, it's a lot more obstacles. And in manufacturing, I'll be the first to tell you that, like, we run into issues. Every manufacturer does. If they tell you different, they're lying. And, it's how we respond to those issues. Like, I'm sure, Jess, you can remember a time when we had an issue with packaging, and it wasn't about being perfect. It was about how do we quickly get around it, understand what happened, and fix it and make it right. And
Hmm.
I think that's the best that you can do in any part of your supply chain. But I think sometimes people go in with blinders, not realizing that is like the more common piece in manufacturing. What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, we've worked with a few different packaging suppliers, and there's no, at least I haven't come across one that is 100% perfect, like you said. I think given the nature of manufacturing and, just like human error, things happen. That's to be expected. No one's perfect. And I think really what sets different suppliers or people in general apart is how you respond to that. Whether it's packaging or anything else, if someone drops the ball, I've had many people try and shirk the responsibility, try and claim that there wasn't a defect, just, anything and everything to find a loophole or just not take accountability. And the people that I always want to work with are people that say, hey, we messed up. That's our bad. How can we fix it? Because I think at the end of the day, you can't take back a mistake. Like, it is what it is. But the important thing is, okay, let's make sure it doesn't happen again, but also, how do we rectify it as soon as possible? Especially with founders or emerging brands, typically you're working on slim margins, tight timelines. So being able to get a resolution as quick as possible is always helpful.
Yeah, for sure. Um, all right, competitors, listen up. I'm going to give away the secret sauce. Duck and cover never works. You gotta do like my dad always said, and square your shoulders and take your medicine. He would always say that bad news does not get better with time. And so, if you want to win in the packaging space, it's about being ethical and being a good partner. And when you mess up, owning, fixing, and making it right.
Mhm.
And if that's what you're doing, I think you'll be winning as well. And so I say that because I want to challenge more people, because I get so many people that come to me with these horror stories of duck and cover, and yeah, it's just terrible. Like that makes it's already hard enough being an emerging brand and entrepreneur. Like, you don't need people that are going to come in your path and just make things 10 times worse because they don't want to be accountable. So anyways, there's the nugget for the competitors. If you are listening to this, you too can be more successful by applying that simple principle. Um, so all right, so kind of a reality check. Like, you got out of school, you launched Jack and Friends. What was that like? Welcome to CPG moment that, like, made you realize, oh my gosh, like I'm in this full force? And yeah, anything that kind of sticks out, like thinking back on your founder journey?
Oh man, so many moments. I think uh a lot of them are tied to my early manufacturing days where when I first graduated from college and essentially went straight into Jack and Friends full time, which we can talk about a little bit more maybe later. I was in a commercial kitchen like many other entrepreneurs, wanted to be small and scrappy. I was bootstrapping the brand, and I was making all the jerky by hand in this commercial kitchen, often like overnight at like 3 a.m. or something, because I still remember that was the cheapest slot for this commercial kitchen. So of course, why would I not take the most affordable one? And then it also allowed me to work the entire day beforehand and then do the kitchen shift. So I think I look back at those days with fond memories and also horror of, wow, look how far we've come. But also, I would not want to repeat that again after having been through it. And specifically, I remember, I think a few months after we soft launched, we were fortunate enough to get a inclusion in the front burner column in the New York Times, which is amazing. I was so ill prepared for it. I think it ended up taking 4 weeks of backlog production just to satisfy the orders for those. And again, I was, hand packing everything, making it in the commercial kitchen. So it was a hard earned win, and definitely, something that was both a high and a low.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Like I forget, I always forget that you came out, a little name drop here. You came out of Catherine's program at the Entrepreneur Space in Queens. For those listening, if you don't know about that resource, there's a great program there in Queens. And I think the number one thing that impresses me about Catherine is that she really impresses upon entrepreneurs like that founder grit that you need. And like she doesn't mince any words, like she just lets you know, like, and she's direct and transparent, and you need that. Like so many, it's like so many of us have so many good people around us that don't want to hurt us and they want to help us, but sometimes help comes in people being really brutally honest with you. And I feel like Catherine, she probably did that for you, yeah, and I know she's done it for other brands. I know she's very proud of you too, coming out of that program.
Yeah, I always love catching up with Catherine and Patricia at the entrepreneur space. I think Catherine and I are very similar in personality. Like we care a lot, but also we're kind of no nonsense. So I always love that part of her. And she definitely, helped Jack and Friends a lot when we were starting out.
Yeah, I mean, it is tough. Like, I also, as we've been on a co-founder journey together, what I've learned is that it's rarely about the big wins. Like, I tell people it's more about navigating the daily obstacles. You see the highlight clips of people celebrating these big wins, and they come far and few between. And so I think one of the best pieces of advice I've given for entrepreneurs or people starting out is just be ready to be tenacious and gritty, and like work through an obstacle every single day. Especially brands like we have are done through co-packing. So in a co-packer model, there's a lot of stuff that's out. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in general in the world that's outside of our control. We like to believe that we have control, more control than we have. But when you're in a co-pack model, you're very much reliant on your partners, and so just knowing that adds an extra layer of obstacle, because it takes time to forge those relationships and work out all the kinks, and get your supply chain really humming. And so what kind of I mean, along that kind of sentiment, like what would you tell entrepreneurs that are starting out? Like, do you agree that like your journey has been one of more overcoming obstacles than really celebrating the big success?
100%. I think whether it's in CPG or not, being a founder is tough. I know there's a lot of discourse and social media and LinkedIn that, really celebrates entrepreneurship as this, shiny, high fame kind of lifestyle. But for the majority of people, it's a lot of late nights working, a lot of, vacations not taken, sacrifices and hard work. So I think people should be prepared for that. I think if you have the talent, the grit, and the passion, then yeah, it's really rewarding, but it's not something that is easy by any means. Um, I would say that yes, my founder journey has been a lot of ups and downs. One thing I recognize I need to be better at is celebrating the wins. Because I think we're similar in this aspect where once I achieve something, I'm like, okay, cool. Now on to the next thing. It's very rare for me to recognize and stop and smell the roses and pat myself on the back of like, oh wow, that was a huge accomplishment. I should take a little time to just recognize that. It's always kind of pushing forward of, how can I be better? Like how can we do the next thing after I've completed this. So I will say that's something I need to be better at because it does become very exhausting when you don't recognize, how hard you've worked and like what you have achieved. Um, so that's one thing I would give as a piece of advice, even the small wins, like it's a huge success, especially when for the most part, especially in CPG, it seems like the world can be against you and there's so many things outside of your control.
Yeah, I think sacrifice is a great concept to have as an entrepreneur. I don't think I thought of sacrifice myself when I was getting into it. And then yeah, over hustle is real. And if you're the sprinter type mentality like you and I are, it's very hard sometimes to not sprint, to like jog, and it's almost impossible to walk. And it's hard to realize that like you can win a race jogging, right? It doesn't always have to be like the fastest sprint that wins the day or gets the recognition. And so yeah, taking time to like recognize the small wins, and that helps you like justify the sacrifice, right? So,
Right.
so on the Jack and Friend side, when you strip away all the logos, the packaging, the marketing, um, what would you say the brand truly stands for? What is that piece of it? What does it that represent to you? Like, tell me a little bit more about maybe like the mission behind the company.
Yeah, I alluded to this a little bit before, but really at the core of Jack and Friends is inclusivity. So our mission is to craft foods inclusive of different lifestyles, diets, allergy restrictions, you name it, without sacrificing taste or nutrition. It all really boils down to kind of my dad as the inspiration for the brand, but also recognizing that there are millions of people exactly like him going through the same struggles where a lot of times we're forced to compromise when choosing food in particular, especially, in snacks or other more convenient categories. And I find that, food is so central to all humans that, the less compromise and the more simplicity in your choices, the better. So that's really the heart of what we're trying to build. Making it easy for someone to have something that fits their lifestyle, but is still going to fuel them forward.
Yeah, it's so cool how dynamic food is in our life, right? Like if you think about all the things that it can do and represent, like I'm a big believer. I think you are too, and like the food is medicine concept. You put the right fuel in, and you're able to have your body respond in amazing ways. It's also a pleasure or an enjoyment thing. It's fuel. I mean, there's just so many pieces that the human being is tied to with food. And I don't know, it's just such an enjoyable, interesting space, especially products like yours that are innovative and leading. you know, thought. I mean, you saw recently with the changing of the food pyramid. I think for more than 20 years, people have been aware that eating more whole, complete foods, natural foods, getting more vegetables, more protein, like the change of the vilification of healthy fat, like all that has been kind of working. And it's interesting to see grains and sugars and simple carbs kind of now at the other end of the spectrum, to where kind of fats, proteins, and these types of things used to live. So it's just very interesting to see the progression and the change. And I think it's products like yours and others that are helping to drive those changes in dietary preference and dietary guidance for modern people that harmonize with their wellness goals and their wellness mindset.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, eat a balanced diet, and that's the most important, and eat as many whole foods as you can. But yeah, we're obviously a snack product, so I'm not gonna say we're changing the landscape and it's like eat Jack and Friends like 24/7. But I think the little things that all add up to make your life simpler, a little bit healthier, are what we're after.
Yeah, certainly better alternatives. It's interesting because I spoke with a longevity doctor, and they said that like two of the key things that you can do to live longer is follow an 80-20 rule for your diet, which is 80% of the time eat and consume things that you know are good for your body, and 20% enjoy yourself. And then the other piece of advice was to get up once a day from your desk and do 5 body weight squats, and that those two things, may can extend, can extend your longevity. It's so interesting, Um,
I'll have to
but
try that.
yeah. I've been trying. I don't love squatting, but I've been trying more and more to get more squats in. I still have to go back and follow up with them and find out like what is the physiology behind it. Why the squat? Why not a lunge? Why not? Right? Like you hear so many people talking about steps or different workouts or exercise. Like why is 5 squats a day body weight? What is going on in the body that is driving the benefit? But I guess as we're kind of nearing an end of the show, we've been dancing around the idea that you and I are we're partners in business for packaging, and but we're also partners in your newest venture, and our partnership in Moka Energy. Um, I guess I want to give you just a moment to talk a little bit about Mocha and what you're doing there, and how you're working to balance a busy schedule with one successful brand and hopefully one soon to be very successful brand.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny whenever people first learn about my involvement in Mocha, their gut reaction is, "Are you crazy? You're adding another startup?" Which that's fair on their part. One startup is typically more than enough for one person, but I think because I have such an amazing team, it's felt quite natural. And I think the beauty of having been through a lot of struggles and learning through Jack and Friends is that we get to skip all that annoyance and just get to the good stuff with Mocha. Obviously it's never going to be 100% pain free, but I think with our co-founding team and our backgrounds, it's been really amazing to see just how much farther we're starting. Where our starting point, was way farther than me coming out of college with Jack and Friends, and now having learned so much. So I really enjoy it. I think it's been awesome to not only work with you, but Omar, all the people in our village, as you say, I love that term. But also, be in a different category. Jack and Friends as a jackfruit jerky is totally different as a coffee bean bar with Mocha Energy. So to kind of still be learning in the industry even after having done so much with Jack and Friends in a totally different category is amazing. I think from a juggling time perspective, thankfully, as the COO and not the CEO for Mocha, I'm very grateful that I get to be the second in command almost instead of the one leading the ship. So I'll say that plays a huge part in it. But I think, yeah, just from the pure fact that all of us are coming with experience and we do have an amazing team, it's probably way less difficult than people imagine when they first hear it. So I'm very excited and I'm very grateful to be part of it. And I know we're going to be successful. So,
Yeah, I always tell people having a team of proven operators is pretty unique in the emerging brand space. I've mentored a lot of emerging brands, and most don't start out with the experience that we have. So it does uniquely set us apart. And it's so interesting because it is a different category, but it's interesting because it's still a snack product and still in the plant based space and the natural food space. So I love that it just aligned and our friendship and partnership was there. And I only had to ask one person because I knew that you were the right person. And it's just been a great partnership. So I'm really excited. We're gonna be in March out at Expo West, and so anybody that's listening that's going to be out at Expo West, obviously look Jessica and I up. We'd love to get together and chat and catch up and compare founders' notes and I guess to kind of tie up the show, tell the audience where they can find your product.
yeah, so Jack and Friends, we're based in Brooklyn, New York. You can find us in various retailers all over the East Coast, mainly Whole Foods, Fairway, Citarella, Big Y, other independents in New York City. We're also in various airports in both LaGuardia, JFK, and some in Virginia, as well as some select locations through DoorDash's Dash Mart in California, Colorado, and other West Coast locations. But look out for some expansion to more stores across the country coming this year. And same thing with Mocha. Hopefully, you'll see us in a store near you quite soon as well.
Yeah, and you can find Jack and Friends products at www.jackandfriendsjerky.com. And I'm going to tell the audience this oftentimes doesn't get said, and I don't know why. Again, I like pushing people and challenging people. You don't know how meaningful the purchase of one pouch of Jack and Friends jerky is to a founder, whether that's done online or even better, going into a store. Like supporting a brand with your dollar, going and buying the product, it opens more doors. It helps us to grow. It helps us to be successful. And a lot of times I have people tell me like, what can I do to support you, or I'll do anything to support you. You don't have to do much. You just have to go and buy the product, and then maybe tell a friend about it, right? Like that is so. I'm going to challenge people listening. Check out Jack and Friends Jerky online, or head into a Whole Foods or grocer that Jessica mentioned, and go buy a pack and give it a try. That's the best way that you can support an entrepreneur. It doesn't have to be just on Small Business Saturday or Small Business Month. It should be something that you're doing all the time. So that's my that's my PSA for the day. Jess, did I miss anything? Is there anything else that you wanted to say about your journey or about Jack and Friends or Moka Energy?
No, I think we covered a lot, which is great. I think the only leave behind, I'll say, is kind of alluding to what we talked about earlier, where if there's any um, new founders, aspiring founders, or even people that have been, in the founder space for quite a while, if you feel like, you're not moving as fast as other people are like have more wins than you, or it just seems like you're facing more obstacles compared to your peers, I promise you that is 99% not the case. Social media and like what we put out to the public is so different from what we're all experiencing. So if this can provide any solace to anyone, just know we're all going through it and you're not alone. And I think the biggest um benefit almost to CPG or the food and beverage industry is the community. So reach out to your friend and, share your worries, vent, celebrate the wins. I think that's one of the um, biggest successes that I've, taken away from just like doing this whole journey is the people I've met. So just want to put that out there because I think a lot of times when I talk to new founders, especially, they always seem to feel like their journey is somehow lacking compared to others. And I hate to see that just because I think it's not true and it's more just like the framing of it.
That is a great piece of advice. And human beings are built to be in community, and even more so, we're built to be in transparent community. And so there's so much good that comes from, and the founder network in the natural food space is so amazing. It's so collaborative, and people are willing to be transparent and vulnerable. So yeah, great advice. I love it. So you can find Jessica's product at jackandfriendsjerky.com. Thank you, Jessica, for joining today. It was awesome chatting with you. Um, I'm looking forward. Thank you, the audience, for listening. I'm looking forward to airing the show, and please keep your ear out for more episodes to follow. But again, thanks, Jess, so much for making time today.
Yeah. Thanks so much. It was great.
Okay. Have a good one. Bye bye.
Bye.